We grew up in a Christian cult that shaped the way we saw God, people, and even ourselves. Leaving our church wasn't easy, but it led us to something better: truth, freedom, and healing. The McMaster's Chronicles is a place where we tell our story, and hopefully a place for others who've walked through spiritual abuse to feel seen, understood, and not alone. We talk about abuse, recovery, rebuilding faith, and the messy, beautiful process of learning how to live again. You'll also find the everyday stuff: our dogs, cats, garden, and all the simple joys that remind us why life is worth rebuilding. This is the McMaster's Chronicles, our story of healing, honesty, and hope. Join us as we chronicle our life, because recovery is real, and so is redemption.
Everybody, welcome to McMaster's Chronicles. I'm Jonathan.
And I'm Joy.
And we are going to continue just telling you about the place that we came from. And hopefully being able to enlighten you, if you're watching this, on some of the red flags and signs to see that where you are may not be a very healthy place like where we came from. And really it was really something for our whole lives that was going on. It wasn't until we got older. I mean, you saw it before me, but now that I'm older and I look back at things and I see like, that was weird, or that was not right, or whatever. But things happened to us as kids.
I think the thing that I want to talk about specifically today is our childhood.
Right.
And how just basically from the very moment we were born, what types of things were done in our lives, what types of rules, what types of punishment, and what types of interactions we've had, because we were in it our whole life.
And how it was like the same but different from both of where we came from. Because I came from the pastor's family. You came from a non-pastor's
family. So there's different
stark
experiences.
Differences. Yeah.
But it's still the similar hurt in the end.
Similar hurt, but it was just like one had more benefits, sort of, in a sense.
Yeah, it was a temporary beneficial place for your family.
I remember.
But not right now. It's not good right now.
Thinking when I got older, when I became an adult and I wasn't a pastor, I was like, man, I'm going to miss out on a lot of things, because as a pastor's kid, I grew up knowing that in this little congregation, I got all of the benefits. And then I was the only pastor's son in the church that didn't then become another pastor.
Well,
isn't that funny?
That's good for you.
But I was also told when I was
in the end.
When I was going to one of my surgeries, the head pastor, we had this whole conversation. It was in Indianapolis at McDonald's, and he was telling me how I'm the heart of the church, that I'm the most important part, that I was going to be, that I needed to lead everybody else, that how I went, everybody was going to go, and all this stuff. And I'm like, dang. And then basically he was telling me I was going to be the evangelist in the church, just like my dad was. And but then his future son-in-law became the evangelist, and I got to be the deacon because I got to make all the money for him. So I don't know, but then the other two pastors' sons became pastors just like their fathers. And anyway, that's kind of a side note, but that was something that I was told as a kid. Well, I guess I was young teenager.
Yeah. So we can just kind of set it up. The pastors' families had special provisions. What were some of the what was benefits. It like?
Well, there was the things of the pastors' families would get together all the time. So we had during Christmas, during holidays, during Sunday afternoons, even I remember for a long period of time, all the pastors' families would either go out to eat together, come over to my family's house, we'd play games, watch TV, watch football. It was always the pastors would do things together. And there became this, like, I mean, for like years, there was a rift of like whether other people were invited or not. And I remember at one point there was like this rule that if the pastors were all getting together, then anybody could be invited or whatever. Like, it was, I don't know, it was just
probably to avoid people getting upset.
But then it never really happened. Like, that's what they would say, but then there would be like there's always things of people being hurt by not being involved in all levels of whatever.
Well, that's very understandable because it was not a very good situation.
No, it wasn't. But there was like, we just had, so as you know, the pastor emeritus now, who was the lead pastor then, if you were like in the in group with him, you felt like special because you were like one of the ones that he hung out with, that he cared for the most, all that stuff. And so like we would go out to get ice cream at what was that ice cream place? Ye Old Fashioned Ice Cream. We'd go to Ye Old Fashioned Ice Cream. Go there. We would go to lunch every Sunday. And I remember one of the things for Sunday lunches that there's this other couple in the church that would come to lunch with us every Sunday. But it got to a point where the lead pastor then, was like, they just want to be pastors with the pastors. They told him, you can't come to lunch with us anymore. And so we had that whole thing with lunches. I don't really know. It was always like, I know this one affected you a lot, and it affected me too, but like later in life when I wasn't a pastor's kid, I've always, didn't have the benefits of being a pastor, was when we would have any fellowship of any kind, pastors always got to go first.
Yeah.
But it wasn't just like, it was like, you must let the pastors go first.
Yeah.
It wasn't just kind of this like, oh, hey, why don't you go ahead? It was like, no, pastors get to go first because they're more important. It was always, but they would always, through the years, as you know, like they would say, like, even our senior pastor at the end would be like, it's
the pastor emeritus.
No, the new senior pastor.
Oh, the new lead pastor?
The new lead pastor.
Okay.
Would say things like, there's no greater than in the human, it's just us to God. Like, remember, and I even like spoke on
they
that.
don't live that way.
But they don't live that way.
All.
And everything that they do is the complete opposite.
Their requirements that they put on people. So I want to talk about my experience growing up in a family that was a non-pastor family. And mine was different in the sense of for many reasons. For one, the non-pastor families tended to be more poorer. And a lot of that had to do with the fact that the non-pastor families were required to give the money, make the money for the pastors. And also kind of combination is my dad would do a lot of the stuff that Jonathan ended up doing, where he would have to go and work at restaurants. That's one of the things.
Mm-hmm.
Work at houses.
Let's just put a disclaimer of the restaurants. Work at restaurants for free.
Yeah. That's illegal.
Yeah.
And so...
But that was directed by the leadership in the church, because it was like, we're supposed to be a church and a community. We're supposed to work with each other and just make it happen together. So they would do things like that and make it sound good, but it was really not legal.
Not good. So I remember really missing my dad, wanting to be with my dad, but my dad was busy all the time. The same thing happened with you, which is very triggering for me because the same pattern happened. And so that was kind of what it was like. And then I would especially feel the weight of everything because there was a lot of shame that my family had in not having a lot. And so there would always be like this I would see what people would get for Christmas. I would see kind of like the special treatment, the things like that, and I would think, well, like what's wrong with us? Like why? And I would get upset because I'm like, this isn't fair. I would especially get upset at the fellowships. But then I would blame myself and I would be like, I am having just a really bad attitude. I need to care for these people, and I need to put that down. That's a very common term if you're in the place that we're from. And it's like, I need to put down my flesh. That's another one. I need to put it down. I need to put down my flesh. And I need to be loving and accepting. And so, like, it definitely didn't feel fair. It definitely was upsetting to me. And I had kind of struggled with it, like, pretty much the entire time I was in there. For, like, my whole life, I struggled with it. But turns out it wasn't good. So, boom. Like, turns out I was actually picking up on something that wasn't right. Well, so that makes me feel better, like, that I wasn't like, oh, yeah. But it still is not okay that it really happened to me. But so that's kind of what it was like. And I even was friends with, like, one of my best friends for most of my life was a pastor's kid. And so it did become a little, like, odd at times where she could be able to do things that I wasn't able to do. Y'all had, like, trips. Y'all had, like, trips to California, trips to, and then it was put on people back home to, like, take care of things while they were gone. It was not a good situation.
Do you remember the Christmas where the head pastor at the time bought all of the other pastors' families like a big, I think at the time 45-inch was really big, 45-inch flat screen TV?
I do not remember that.
He bought all 4 families because there were 5 pastors' families at the time.
He bought
45-inch flat screen TVs for all the pastors' families.
Oh my Lord.
We were one of them, so we got a brand new TV. Somebody delivered it to all the different people on Christmas Eve.
So another thing,
I think that year he also bought, like, Wii's for all of the non-pastor families.
Thing that I remember, and people have, like, told me about it kind of because they were adults out here, they were adults, but I have, like, flashes of memories where the pastor emeritus and his wife had their, was it 25th wedding anniversary?
Yeah.
25th. And it was basically like he told them, like, I want a party, and I want a nice party.
And he had to be sitting elevated to be over everybody.
And the pastor's families were up there.
Mm-hmm. But he was, like, in the center, the highest.
Everybody dressed up. I remember dressing up for it. I have, like, glimpses of it, and then I saw pictures of it, and I was like, I remember that. And just like, it's just absolutely ridiculous.
It was very much elevating and lifting up a man. Yeah. That was the whole point of things.
Yeah, when you look back, it's like, you can really, compare it to, like, a dictatorship.
Yeah, for real.
A dictatorship in historical sense, it was a dictatorship. And then he had his generals, he had his right-hand men, mm-hmm. And they got, and then there were the plebes, the people that, and so I very much was a plebe. And
the thing is, too, is that, like, this was it was, like, lived out in a way that, like, things that I would hear would be, so-and-so in the church isn't caring for their family, so-and-so in their church isn't paying for their bills, so-and-so in the church I would hear all these bad things about the non-pastor families. So the way that I always saw it is, like, they're terrible people. They're living really bad lives because they're very disobedient and they don't, listen to the pastors, because all I'm hearing is the side of the pastor's family. So my whole world was the pastor's families. It wasn't the whole church. I hung out with a couple of people that weren't, but like my best friend who was a pastor's kid, then, so it was me and him, my sister, and another girl. The four of us would hang out all the time. We're two pastors' families' children. But like I just didn't hang out with anybody that was not a pastor's family. Mm-hmm. But it was like set up that way.
Yeah.
It wasn't just like I didn't like y'all. It's like I didn't even know you.
This is like how you grew.
Yeah.
And so like that's kind of what I like to talk about in these videos is like this is the only thing we ever knew.
Yeah.
This is the only thing that was ever presented to us. And so that is kind of how it was set up. And then within this kind of hierarchy, there were rules that you learned. There was rules, there were different agendas, different pushes. And one of them being like, one I remember is yes ma'am, no ma'am.
Mm-hmm.
And the yes ma'am, no ma'am thing was like you literally, if someone was like older than you, you just had to say like yes ma'am to them.
But it wasn't even
or
like
no
just
ma'am or
adults. It
yes
was like,
sir, no sir.
Yeah. I remember I was like young and people were having to say yes sir and no sir to me because I was older than them. But I was like a teenager.
Yeah. There was a strange little wave that kind of went through, I think when I was in middle school maybe, or just getting into middle school, where you had to call people Mrs., like Miss and Mr.
Mm-hmm.
And if they were pastors or pastors' wives, you had to call the pastors' wives Mrs.
And that happened all the way through.
That happened all the way through. And fun little tidbit, I refused to call some people their names that they were wrong because I would find ways in conversations to not say their name.
Yeah.
I got very good at it because I just found that absolutely, first of all, it is very shame. It's all like shame driven, where it's like there is a lesser and there's a higher. There's a higher and there's a lesser. So like there was a recent time in 2023, I guess, where they were saying we had to call the pastor emeritus wife Lady Blank. And I'm like, nope, I'm not going to do it.
It's really weird.
So you'll find this in like other churches and organizations too. I've heard of like first ladies. I've heard of like special like prophet, whatever. Other organizations do it. But I would watch out for it because it is a little bit like I'm higher, I'm better than you, and like kind of like it's all kind of putting people in positions that don't need that position.
It was like used as a separation of power, and they would say like, oh well, they're the called of God, so they deserve the respect. But it wasn't really just about honoring them. It was like about separating them.
Yeah.
And setting them apart from you. And it wasn't just saying this person deserves honor, you deserve honor, but they have a different calling. It was like, these people deserve honor. You need to support them. You need to do everything for them.
And I remember feeling just such a deep ache and such a deep problem with that messaging.
Yeah.
Because it was very hurtful. And like when you get right down to it, like they said it in a nice way, but sometimes they like put an example of in a very mean way.
Well,
but
yeah.
I remember just feeling really upset at like the fact that I knew I could not get out of this situation because I was not a pastor. Or like not that I wanted to be a pastor, but I was not in a pastor's family.
Right.
And I felt that way as a child, and I felt that way with you as an adult, because there was no getting out of the financial problem.
No, because we weren't
because
pastors.
we were not pastors. And being a pastor meant that you did not have to deal with the finances. And I remember just just longing so much to be out of that situation and to be relieved of this just incredible burden that they placed on the people. And I was gaslit so many times along the way. But it is just so good to know that I was not crazy for feeling that way, that I knew it was wrong, and that it was wrong, and that is actually really not okay what happened. And it's why I'm very passionate about people in there, that they need to know it's not okay. They need to know that they're being mistreated and it's not biblical, and then it's right that you have a problem with it.
Being a pastor is not a get out of jail free card.
No, and it was. And I remember bringing it up specifically multiple times to them. Hey, we're doing this. They're not doing it. That's a problem. I remember 2020 we did that. We got in so much trouble.
Because you called it out.
Because I was like, I don't know why you're acting like my friend. You're asking how I'm doing, but you should know how I'm doing, because what we're doing is we're building chicken coops. We're building garden beds. And you're not doing anything for these chicken coops and garden beds. And I'm like, what's up with that? And then they did not like that. and then they said to us, we can do it without you. And we should have been like, okay, peace. But we didn't. We felt really bad, and we're like, we're so sorry.
It's just
so the yes ma'am, the no ma'am, the lesser, the higher, whatever.
The yes
whatever
ma'am and
BS.
no ma'am is more than just being respectful. It was like a separation of people. Yeah. That's really what it was represented of. Because I say yes ma'am and no ma'am to people still, like, no sir, yes sir, whatever.
Quite frankly, I do not.
But I do that because I grew up on it. But it's not like a problem to do that. It's what it was used for. It was just it wasn't just what a normal person, if a person on the outside came in and saw you as a kid saying yes ma'am to somebody, they'd be like, oh, she's so
that's
respectful.
Normal. But I
that's
remember
not what it was.
You would get in so much trouble if you didn't. You could get spanked. You could get put in the corner. It would mean this horrible thing about you if you didn't call someone by their Mrs. or Mr. or yes ma'am or no ma'ams. And I remember saying yes ma'am one time and getting in trouble for saying yes ma'am, because they're like, what do you mean? What do you mean by yes ma'am?
Yeah, they would do that.
And I meant
you'd have to say
I meant well, yes, I get what you're saying, but they're like, don't just say yes ma'am. Don't just say yes ma'am, say blah blah blah. I can't even remember everything.
They did that a lot.
They did it a lot. They were such bullies.
I remember
because it wasn't enough information.
Right. And I remember they would criticize that all the way up until just recently. They probably still do it. Is people that just say yes sir, they would mock that. Yeah. Because it's you're just saying yes sir just to get us to get off your back. And honestly, yeah.
Yeah, because you shouldn't be on their back to begin with.
Right.
Okay.
So but that also, the yes ma'am, no ma'am thing, and yes sir, no sir is if you didn't say it right away, then you were in trouble. Yeah. And that's where
they didn't want you to think.
Right.
They wanted, there is a lot of emphasis of delayed obedience. Another one is delayed obedience is disobedience. So all of these things that we were brainwashed and traumatized by have affected the decisions that people are currently making in there. That has affected families. And it was all very, very intentional. They wanted to create people, a whole generation of people that just accepted their behavior, that just accepted the wrong, that just accepted and went along with things that they wanted to go along with. And you were very susceptible to that. You were very go along with things. Yeah. You were very, this is right, because you thought it was right, because from when you were a very tiny person, from a baby, this was done to you.
A little person.
And that's true for everybody who grew up in there.
So now they have been trained not to if the pastor says something, they have to do it right away.
Yeah.
So as adults now, they have learned through their entire formative years that they do it immediately. And if they don't, they're disobeying, which what that does is it takes away any logical reasoning, thought, anything from that person to be like, hold on, this isn't good. This is wrong.
Depending upon how bought in they are, but yes.
Right, exactly. Well, I'm talking from my experience because
for you, it definitely was very
I think
effective.
I've said this before, but that last day where the pastor was like, whatever I say, you do it immediately without question. That is so wrong.
When did he say that?
That last Wednesday that I met him at his house. The last Wednesday,
yeah. And he wanted you to do that.
And I know we talked about that time, I think on a previous video of me and on the guy's porch, and he said, my dad was like, John, and I didn't answer right away. Yeah. There was delayed obedience. I think we've talked about. And then
there's the time.
The Sunday night.
Yeah, like a Sunday night where he tried to get everybody.
He was like, everybody has to copy what I do. And he made some weird noise. And he was like, you have to do it right away. And not everybody did it right away because it was weird. And he was like showing how we weren't fully submitted to him because we didn't just follow exactly what he did right away.
Yeah.
Which is like,
I remember feeling
control.
So much shame in those moments if I didn't do what he wanted.
Yeah.
Feeling so much shame and like, oh man, something's wrong with me because I'm not an automaton.
Right, exactly.
I am not an automaton. Something is wrong with me.
So,
and good to know nothing was wrong with me.
Something that I find interesting because now when I got older and everything, I started being able to like question things and see things for like how they really were and stuff. And I remember when my sister left and I was talking a lot with the pastor emeritus a lot during this time with when she was leaving, when stuff was going on with my dad, all that stuff. And he basically told me that at a certain age, like 17, 18, you become where you're not just being led by your parents or authority. You are autonomous and the decisions you make are your own. So you can't like blame it on somebody else. Basically, he was saying that at just a certain age, you were 100% just responsible and autonomous no matter what you said or what the situation was. So he was really trying to take away any control factor that he had or anybody, and make me believe that, okay, everything I'm doing is 100% me now. There's no influence. I can't say that this person influenced me.
You're still severely coerced.
Yeah.
Severely coerced.
Oh, he knew what he was doing.
That is so crazy.
But he would do that.
Crazy.
And I'm
so
like, whoa.
Another way that they groomed us was there was a period of time we call it the carpet. And yes, there's terms. There's terms for
and you
these
can ask
things.
Other people that have been in this church before, and they'll know exactly what you're talking about.
Something I will say is the other girl and me are the only ones. We're the oldest ones. And then everybody else is like Gen Z, basically.
Yeah.
Like we were
y'all were like on the top.
Like the millennial cutoff. And so the ones below us are the ones that probably may remember it. But we were older at the time, and so we remember the rules. And so there is basically like an edict that was given where if you were below like 12 and under, you had to sit on this piece of carpet. And so something you should know is that the entirety of the time, or majority of the times we were in this organization, there was not a building, which is also kind of worked against us because we were like, we're going to get this dang building. Which you're still like, whatever happens, that. But like, we had not had a normal building. Which makes so much sense now as an adult because they were putting up literal hurdles. Like people were dancing, like going over literal hurdles all the time. Makes sense why they were not able to keep a building. But we had these strange buildings. We would rent places out. We would meet in hotels. We'd meet at people's houses. We rented out this place in Charleston, Festival Center. And it was like a big space, and there was not enough money to just get regular carpet. So what they did is they put pieces of carpet.
They got like donations of different pieces from places.
From carpet stores.
Yeah.
So you got a random carpet piece, and if you're dancing and you fall on those carpets, you will get carpet burn. Yeah. It's happened to me. Anyway, so there's this nice big section of carpet. It was white.
It's really funny.
It was like a white gray. It's true. It's what happened.
This is
crazy. It is like a white gray carpet. And they're like 12 and under or whatever. Or maybe 11.
It was 12.
Maybe when I turned 12 or maybe when I turned 13 I didn't have to be on it.
Because
was it 12?
It was 13, you didn't have to be there anymore.
Okay,
because I got lucky. I was 13 right when they started the youth group. And then it was only about a year later when we got into this building and you were on the carpet at that point. So you would have been like 12 then. All
right, so I was like 12. Way too old for this type of rules. And we were not, this girl and me, we were not crazy people. We were very mature for our age, which is definitely indication what we've been through. But also just like, smart, not crazy people, okay? So we are on this carpet. And if you have to go to the bathroom, you have to ask to get off the carpet. If you want to go talk to your mom, you have to ask to get off the carpet. And there were carpet people monitors, and different women were in charge of watching the carpet. You had to play, you had to bring toys or whatever to play. But see, I was way too old. I just remember just a lot of shame. I carried so much shame. I still carry it. That I don't need to carry anymore. And I'm like, wait a second. Why are you ashamed of that? Move on. Not in a mean way, but just realizing that was ridiculous. But so there came a time when I was someone had told me, I think it could have been Pastor Emeritus or someone that would know the answer. It's oh, you're too old to be on the carpet. I'm like, yeah, I'm too old to be on the carpet. And you're too old to be on the carpet. You can get off. And I'm like, sweet. And then I think so I was just off the carpet, but then the carpet monitor person came up to me. And they're like, you're supposed to be on the carpet. And I was like, but I was told that I wasn't. And then I got in trouble for somehow not saying it the right way, that I was supposed to be off the carpet. That kind of stuff happened all the time. Anyway, the carpet, let's go back to it. That was coercive control. And that was, in my opinion, this is, of course, everything we say is our opinion. But when I go back and I kind of unpack the carpet, that was a way for the pastor emeritus to see how far the parents would allow their kids to be taken advantage of and controlled by the system. Number one. Number two, it was to see how compliant the actual kids were to the system. And I mean, I was pretty compliant because I didn't want to be beaten. So, you know what I mean? And then, and so it's a very sinister, when I think of the carpet, I was like, wow, that is so sinister. And I know the terms for it now. I know it was coercion. You had to have permission for everything. There would be rules put in place and you had to follow the rules in a very certain pattern, which definitely fed into OCD tendencies, which I ended up having due to what happened to me in my life. But it was not okay. So this is, and then I think there's two other things I want to mention for this video, just to kind of paint the picture of the system that we grew up in. And the other one is modesty. So as a girl, this applies to me more because guys don't really have a problem with it, apparently. I don't know. As a girl, this is how I learned about modesty. I remember being very aware of my body super early, which probably isn't normal because of the things that people would say to me, you got to put your dress down, which is just like kind of normal things. Got to put your dress down. But I remember getting ready for a wedding, and any part, like I remember feeling like I'm showing too much. This feels too much. And I mean, like always asking, am I modest? Am I modest? Am I modest? Because the shame that you feel when someone comes up to you and tells you that, like I felt so much shame. So I would be always avoiding that shame, always avoiding of that shame that would be put on me. I remember like if my legs were in a certain way, they would always come up and say, you need to put your dress down, you need to put your dress down. Or if like a bra strap is showing, you had to cover up the bra strap. Like, but of course there's always this like kind of like subliminal messaging that since that happened, you are a bad person.
You want to show
you
that.
Want to show that, or you're a bad person. And so that's the subliminal messaging. I'm sure people have very specific, red lipstick was a part of it. The red lipstick thing, I know I mentioned that in the past. You can't wear red lipstick. You are not allowed to wear leggings. I remember explicit messages given by the pastor emeritus on why leggings were inappropriate.
Isn't it fascinating how much detail he goes into about why things are
very
immodest?
Explicit, very uncomfortable. And so I remember like purposefully being like, I am going to wear something that does not draw attention to myself. Like I do not want to wear something that will get me into trouble. And there was a time I remember there was like youth group, ladies meetings, where they had created this rule where you could not wear low-rise jeans. So then people were like having to measure how close the jeans were to your belly button, because the standard became you had to have jeans like at your belly button. Listen, I was like maybe like 10 at the time, but that definitely did happen. You can chime in if you remember. Then, so just like strange, I remember a very formative moment where I did ballet when I was younger. I brought my ballet stuff to my friend's house. I go downstairs and her mom was like, you can't wear a leotard because that's immodest. And that was so embarrassing. I remember holding that. Just holding that shame. So much shame as a child, as a woman, as a girl. And lots of commenting on the body. And
but just kind of a weird, funny thing about that too. Not really funny, but like that was such a thing. And it was just the way that it was set up, how the pastors had the say of how the women dressed.
And something, the last thing will be like salvation, and like what salvation meant to us, and like kind of our interactions with salvation. And so those are, so salvation, I remember being in children's church and them talking about sin. These are very foundational things. I remember like someone asking if I was saved, and I was pretty young. I was like, no, I don't know what you mean. And then them being like, you need to be saved or whatever. That was a kid though. And then I remember my salvation experience thankfully being not a direct result from coercion from the pulpit, which I'm very thankful for. And it is very essential in my life that it was not that way. Other people were not as fortunate. But I like was convicted, I was like, I'm a liar, you know, like, and I saw kind of like, man, I have fallen really short and I need God. That was my salvation experience. And thankfully, it is not confusing. Like other people have confusion. Yeah. Other people were made to do it because they were deemed wrong or they were deemed horrible. And I'm very thankful that I did not have that. But I do remember prior to being saved, the awareness of hell and being totally afraid of it. Totally afraid of hell. And like going to sleep and being like, if I die, am I going to die? Like, if I die in my sleep, am I going to go to hell? So there was a lot of fear. So there is a lot of fear associated with salvation, instead of there being kind of like a loving, peaceful leading to that.
And the thing too is that because I mean, I believe that God can use like, you know, hey, you're a sinner, you're going to hell, you need salvation. Like if you know your eternity, then that can be a scary thing. But it was not only just used for you in if you were lost, it was used all the way through your life. You were always having to that was always in question by the leadership. It was always like, if you do these wrong, then you could be lost. You can be going to hell.
Because it was like evidence of you being a bad person.
Right. It was like sinning. Evidence that you weren't saved.
Yeah.
So like they took something that is real and like twisted it and used it against people. Mm-hmm. So then that's like then it's a wrong fear.
So you automatically have that, like from a very small child, you're afraid of hell.
Yeah.
So you're afraid of hell pretty much the whole time. Yep. Then you, someone says you're lost. What is your response going to be in that situation? You're going to be like, oh well, whatever, peace. You know what I mean? No, you're going to be like, what? You're going to like buy in harder. You're going to like believe harder.
Which does make it less about the reality of Jesus coming and dying. That's what you're saying. It's like, it's not, it's more about like, whoa, I'm going to hell. I need to do something about it.
A lot of fear response. Yeah. A lot of fear response instead of like a relationship
and like being
response to God. Yeah.
To him and not just like I need to be not going to hell.
So that salvation was definitely held over everybody for like their whole entire existence.
Even if you got saved.
Yeah, even if you got saved, it is still in question. But then they would say, but you can't lose your salvation.
You can't lose your salvation.
So somehow the first time you got saved was wrong.
Yep. And if you know, you know. Like you just know. That's how you know.
And like that's actually kind of like true.
It is true.
So it's a little confusing when you don't have like, I feel like I'm an outlier in this whole salvation thing. It was questioned
forever,
but they didn't do it as much to me. And so because they didn't do it as much to me, I don't have as much of that wound as other people do. But it's a really legitimate, really big issue that they did to these people.
They do it so much that you're never gonna feel like you know, because no matter
and that makes you dependent on them telling you. Mm-hmm. But they will never say that. They will never say that because they say all the right Bible-y stuff sometimes. Well, not all the time.
They say a lot of the right Bible stuff. They will say the right
Bible stuff about salvation, which we are doing a video on that. And you're like, well, if that's right, then how could this be wrong? You know, it's very confusing. But
that's what really helped me leave is whenever I was able to separate my salvation with a person to realizing, no, my salvation was just only because Jesus saved me, not because this man said that it happened.
Yeah.
I had to really separate that because I kept hearing the other messaging for so long. And I know there's more on this childhood stuff that we want to talk about, but
yeah, so basically this video is just kind of a groundwork, like we're just setting the landscape of what it was like, the systems and the hierarchy in place from when we were infants, from the very beginning of our lives. And
because we both have been in there our whole time, and we've known this pastor specifically. forever.
Mm-hmm.
But
in the next video, we're going to talk about kind of like what it was like when you violated the rules and the punishments and the fear. Oh, it's like a lot of fear. So much fear.
Well, please subscribe. Click on that little button right there. Subscribe. Pass this around. Like the video. Just comment. Even if you say this was helpful or just have questions.
Or tell your story.
Comment. Yeah, we'd love to hear that. But thank you for watching, and we will see you next time.